They say silence is golden, but sometimes silence can cut deeper than any weapon. That night, I returned home smiling, believing I had gotten away with everything. My secret felt safe, my betrayal buried in the shadows. But when I stepped inside, expecting routine warmth, I was met with nothing but stillness. No questions, no accusations, just his quiet eyes staring at me as if he already knew. And in that moment, I realized words weren't necessary. His silence was the most brutal punishment I could ever endure. My name is Emily. For 10 years, I was married to Daniel, a man whose quiet nature had always been both his greatest strength and, at times, his weakness. He wasn't the type to shower me with grand gestures or dramatic affection, but he built his love in ways that were steady, constant, and deeply dependable. He worked long hours, saved diligently, and made sure our home was always secure. While others might not have called him exciting, I found comfort in his predictability. Our life together was simple. We had a modest house in the suburbs, a garden Daniel tended with quiet pride, and evenings filled with small routines. Dinner at 7, a walk around the block, and then a movie before bed. From the outside, we looked like a couple who had everything figured out. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. I began to feel restless. The stability that once comforted me started to feel suffocating. Daniel was patient and loving, but his silence often left me yearning for more. When he sat across the dinner table, his eyes locked on the newspaper, I sometimes wondered if he even noticed me anymore. I wanted excitement, attention, and the thrill of being desired in a way that was loud, undeniable, and overwhelming. It was during a work conference that temptation first appeared. A colleague named Ryan, full of charm and charisma, leaned into conversations with a confidence Daniel never had. He laughed loudly, complimented me openly, and his attention felt intoxicating. What began as harmless small talk quickly shifted into something more. His texts became frequent, his tone flirtatious, and before long, I was caught in a web I didn't know how to escape. At first, I told myself it was nothing. A few messages, a smile shared across the office, a secret thrill to brighten my otherwise routine days. But the thrill grew, and soon, I found myself sneaking away during lunch breaks, my heart racing as though I were a teenager again. It was reckless, but it was exciting. It made me feel alive. The guilt was there, whispering in the background, but I silenced it with justifications. Daniel will never know. It's just for me. Something harmless to escape the monotony. But I knew deep down it was more than that. I was betraying a man who had given me nothing but loyalty and trust. And yet I didn't stop. The affair escalated. What started as stolen moments became long afternoons in hotels, where I convinced myself I was experiencing passion Daniel could never give me. Each time I returned home, I slipped back into my role as the dutiful wife. I cooked, cleaned, smiled, and carried on, certain that my secret was safe. What I didn't realize was that Daniel wasn't blind. His quiet nature didn't mean he was ignorant. It meant he noticed everything, absorbed it, and kept it to himself. The late nights I explained away, the sudden interest in my phone, the distracted look in my eyes. He saw it all. He just chose not to speak. There's a strange tension that builds when you live two lives. On the surface, everything appears normal, but underneath, the guilt and lies bubble like a storm waiting to erupt. I began to notice subtle changes in Daniel. He didn't confront me. He didn't ask questions. But he stopped meeting my eyes at dinner. He stopped reaching for my hand during our walks. The silence between us grew heavier, almost unbearable. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it. But deep down, I knew. He was pulling away, retreating into the quiet shell that had always defined him. But this time, it was different. It wasn't the silence of contentment. It was the silence of knowing. And yet, I still didn't stop. The pull of Ryan's attention kept dragging me further in. Each time I told myself it would be the last, but the lies came easily now. I believed, foolishly, that Daniel's silence meant ignorance. But silence is deceptive. It can hide fury, sorrow, and the deepest kind of disappointment. The moment of unraveling came unexpectedly. It was a Thursday evening. Nothing unusual. I had spent the afternoon with Ryan and returned home later than usual. I entered the house smiling, rehearsing excuses in my head, convinced Daniel would ask where I'd been. But he didn't. Instead, he sat in the living room, the TV off, the lights dim. He looked at me with eyes so calm, so unreadable, that my stomach twisted. No accusations left his lips. No anger flared in his voice. Just silence. I tried to fill it. I babbled about traffic, about errands, about meaningless things. But his silence was louder than any words. Told me everything he knew. And in that moment, my world began to collapse. I had always imagined betrayal being exposed in a storm of shouting, tears, and rage. But this was worse. Daniel didn't raise his voice. He didn't throw things. He didn't even ask for an explanation. He simply looked at me, and in that gaze was a mirror reflecting all my sins. The weight of my choices came crashing down, not because he condemned me, but because he refused to. Days turned into weeks, and his silence remained. He went about his routines, but the warmth was gone. He spoke only when necessary, his tone neutral, his words clipped. He slept on his side of the bed without reaching for me. He ate his meals without looking up. It was as though I no longer existed, not as his wife, not as his partner, but as a ghost haunting the ruins of what we once had. I begged for confrontation. I wanted him to scream, to accuse, to demand answers. Anything but this quiet indifference. But he gave me nothing. His silence left me alone with my guilt, forcing me to sit with the weight of every betrayal. It was unbearable. Ryan's attention no longer thrilled me. His words felt hollow, meaningless compared to the silence at home. The affair that once felt like freedom now felt like a chain around my neck. I realized too late that I had traded loyalty for lies, stability for emptiness. One night I broke. I confessed everything, pouring out the truth between sobs, begging for forgiveness, for a chance to make things right. But Daniel said nothing. He simply stood, walked past me, and closed the bedroom door. The sound of that door clicking shut was louder than any scream. Silence can be many things. It can be peace, it can be comfort, but it can also be punishment. Daniel never left me, not physically. He stayed in the house, continued his routines, and lived beside me. But emotionally, he was gone. His silence was a wall I could never break through. And in many ways, it was worse than divorce, worse than any fight. Because it left me in limbo. Alive but invisible, present but forgotten. I destroyed my marriage, not with shouting or violence, but with choices I thought I could hide. And the consequence wasn't rage or revenge. It was silence. A silence that forced me to confront the truth of who I had become. I had betrayed the one person who gave me unwavering trust, and in return, he took away the one thing I had always taken for granted. His presence. Now, when I think back to that night I walked in smiling, I realized the smile was the cruelest part. I thought I had won. Instead, I had already lost. And so I leave you with this question. If you betrayed someone you loved, what would hurt more? An explosion of anger, or the unshakable silence that follows? Because sometimes the loudest punishment is the one you can't hear at all.